Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for your favorite hour of the week. It's time for Bucks Ball and Beyond. Hello, everybody. Nathan Buckley joined by a special guest tonight. You probably know it's Brant. Pulled you for a fast one there. Brant, how we doing tonight?
Oh, it's going good, Nate. Was a fun weekend. Got another fun weekend ahead of us here on the horizon. Got an interesting week to get through this week, but hey, how better to start the week than with another episode of Bucks Ball and Beyond?
I believe people have started to, it's kind of their church, I guess you could say. It's kind of their, they can't make it through the week without it. So we've been hearing a lot of good feedback about it. We're listening to all the feedback and we're loving it, Brant.
Can I just say to start, you're sitting in the kitchen right now. I know mom's down there. I can already see the side eye that she gave you when you said the word church. I
Actually,
know that
mom,
she can't hear me right now, but
Mom actually had rat duty. She had to take Murray outside for a few minutes because he wouldn't stop meowing by the door. So she's not currently in the room. Dad's in the living room though. I think he was
hmm.
watching Forrest Gump earlier. So
Well, if she was in the kitchen, I'm sure she probably would have given you a side eye when you said the word church, but love you, mom. No, nothing against that. Anyway, yeah, Nate, we got a lot to dive into today
yes, we do.
because with Coach Miller being on last week, big shout out to him again. Big thanks for him coming on. Would also like to give a shout out to the Matrix boys from the Thursday night softball team because they took what we said on the podcast last week to heart, especially one Gabriel Miller. He took what we said and he did some nasty things with it. I think he had 2 home runs, Nate.
Yeah, the funny thing is he came up his first at bat there, he got out. And I'm like, I kind of heckled him a little bit. I'm like, hey, I could do that. I could do that. And then he ended up hitting 2 home runs. And it's like, yeah, I probably can't do that. I'm just going to sit here in the dugout and drink my beer and stick to where I belong. So shout out, Gabe. Congratulations, boys. Season sweep on us this year. So now
Hey, you never know.
it's time for the playoffs.
Could meet next week in the
Could meet
playoffs.
next week. Yep. Could meet in those semifinals. Um, But Brant, yeah, let's I guess start with that. By the way, just like you said, shout out Jeremy, great episode. I think personally our best episode yet. I think if you
For
ask me,
sure, one of the better ones.
hmm let's get into the big thing that happened last week that we didn't really talk about on the podcast, and that was the MLB trade deadline at 6 o'clock on Monday. Tigers lose Skubal, Tigers lose Mize. Gonna be honest with you, they haven't lost a whole lot since then, have they?
No, they haven't. And that's been the funny thing is that if you look at how the Tigers have been doing versus how the Dodgers have been doing since the Skubal trade, I believe the Tigers are somewhere in the realm of like 5-2, maybe.
Yeah. hmm
The Dodgers are 1-6, and they didn't even win on their one Skubal night so far.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's tradition carries. I mean, Detroit didn't really win a lot on Skubal days anyway because of their bullpen, but they won a little bit more, than they would with other pitchers starting. But if you would have told me that when Skubal gets added to the Dodgers that they suddenly become worse, that just goes to show right there. Everybody shoot it in. They started writing it in when the Dodgers got Skubal that they're going to win the championship. There's going to be a lockout. I really do think there's going to be a lockout, no matter how the Dodgers do in the playoffs. It just proves they can go cold. And if they go cold in the playoffs, and they haven't really been playing top-notch teams, they played a Cubs team that the Tigers took 2 of 3 from in the same stretch, like maybe 2 weeks ago. Really, the Tigers have been getting red hot, really, since
Yeah.
the All-Star break. I was just looking up a few stats while we were waiting on. We had a few technical difficulties that I was looking them up. They're 6-3 in their 9 series since the All-Star break. They're 14-8 overall. They have swept the A's twice, and then they have series losses to the Phillies, which was a very respectable series loss. And then obviously the two not so pretty ones back to back with the Royals and the Orioles. But other than that, we haven't seen anything out of the Skubal trade. We haven't seen anything out of the Mize trade. I don't anticipate us seeing anything out of the Mize trade or the Skubal trade anytime soon, unless Zaire Hope happens to come up anytime. But you look at what's coming up on the horizon this week. I think Kerry Carpenter's projected to make his return this week. I'm more excited to see Carpenter come back because right now they're really going through the ringer out there with that third outfielder with Malgiri. They've got McKinstry, who's actually playing some really good ball out in the outfield right now. But the only thing that getting Kerry Carpenter back into this lineup is going to do is going to make it better. And something that I actually just heard moments before we jumped on the podcast is that Brant Herter is
Yes.
also
Hmm.
projected to make his return sometime this week, which usually you wouldn't really think Brant Herter is really much of an exciting guy to get back, but man, he was pitching some good innings before he went on the injured list.
And that's kind of the thing is, you trade all these guys off. You trade Scooble and Mize off at the trade deadline. And suddenly, I mean, Troy Melton, it kind of all the whole spotlight was on Scooble in Detroit and Mize and how good they've been pitching, but nobody really took time to notice what Melton was doing until they were gone. I mean, Melton's probably going to be the new ace here in a few years. You take a look, the bullpen, like you mentioned, they're getting Brant Herter back. That was your prop last week. We'll get into that later, but everybody's putting out guesses of 7, 8, 9 runs. They only gave up a run in the San Francisco series. They pitched very, very well. They lost that first game, but that was all Cater Montero. That was all Cater Montero's runs there. It's like, you know, as we start to get offensive pieces back, Kerry Carpenter, the offense is looking much and much better since the return of guys like Javier Baez and Gleyber Torres. Suddenly it's like, hey, do we really need Scooble and Mize? Yes, they would be great to have on there, but they're only one game out of a wild card spot right now, and they're playing their biggest division rivals this week. Like the Cleveland series moving into the Chicago series, they have a chance to make up some ground here, Brant. If they play really good baseball this week, they're right back in the mix of it without Scooble and without Mize.
Oh, I completely agree. I think that one of the things we're going to hear, though, if they can get themselves into a playoff spot this year, because they're, like you mentioned, they're only a game out of the wild card right now, and they're
Mm-hmm.
3.5, I think, back in the AL Central. Um, we're gonna be hearing, well, we shouldn't have gotten rid of Mize. We shouldn't have got rid of Scooble. I'll be completely honest. It's not the starting pitching. It was never the starting pitching. What was going to determine if this season got turned around or not is if the offense can get humming, like they have been for the last few weeks, and if the bullpen can be consistent, like they were this weekend. Last week, they got a little bit rattled in the Mariners series, a little bit, but this weekend they played great ball. They pitched well, and that's why the Tigers took the series.
I'm going to say right now, if this offense was around in May, the Tigers could be looking at one of the best teams in baseball. Yeah, I mean, you take a look at the 20 some blown saves, from the bullpen as well. But the Tigers only had 6 wins in the month of May. Remember that, and a lot of that was due to injuries from the bullpen, from the offense. You know, if those problems were fixed in May, they might be looking at one of the best, they might be looking at a World Series contender, and maybe you keep Scooble, maybe you keep Mize, maybe you build around them. But either way, they still have everything in front of them that that their goals are still right there, I guess. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, for sure. And if Mountain can keep pitching the way that he has, Jackson Jobe just
Yes.
came back
Hmm.
and pitched phenomenal on Saturday, despite not getting his 5 strikeouts for mine and Brendan's parlay, which was the only thing that missed. Not salty about that at all. But
Womp womp, buddy.
Jobe pitched outstanding. I think he only gave up like 2 hits, maybe. Like that's the kind of guy that we need to throw back into this rotation. If you can get Brant Herter back so that Cater Montero can stay in the starting lineup, eventually you're going to be getting Olson back, maybe around playoff time. Man, this starting pitching could actually look pretty good come playoff time. Um, I do want to go back to the bullpen for a second because I just had to look it up because I saw a stat today. I saw Melton's final stat line from yesterday. And again, we'll get into this in a little bit. That run did not go on the bullpen. That run went on Troy Melton. The bullpen in the weekend series gave up no runs.
Wow. Okay.
That's going
That's
to screw a
impressive.
lot of people in the Bucks bets.
That's
More to come there.
that's
But
that's interesting. That's really, I mean, phenomenal weekend from the bullpen right there.
it has been. This team, well, I mean, you look at it. Why did they struggle in May? because their offense couldn't get going, their bullpen sucked, and they started getting hurt. What's happened since then? They've started getting healthy. Their bullpen's starting to get a little bit more experience. You bring up guys like this Drew Summers, Drew Anderson, Wolfpack. These guys who don't have big league experience. They have, you know, bounds and leaps of minor league baseball experience, but they don't have major league experience. And as they go on, they're getting more of that major league experience and they're starting to pitch better. Now, granted, it helps that they're not in a very good division. If they were in pretty much any other division in baseball, they'd be in a lot different situation. But still, they're 2 games from being 500, and it's not a matter of how you get there. It's just about getting there. Because I believe since the beginning of June, the Tigers have the second best record in baseball, and that's only behind the Red Sox, who went historic and won, what, 14 games in a row?
Yeah, I mean, Boston has lit it up. They're finally starting to re-enter the picture, and I think it's important to note too, um, not to kind of bring down some of the hype, but starting with that Kansas City series, their next 16 games, including those Kansas City games, were against sub 500 teams. So yeah, you're facing the Athletics, who really aren't the best team in baseball, the Giants, who aren't the best team in baseball. I think that's coming. That 16 game stretch is coming to an end with this San Francisco series here. But it's just like we talked about a few weeks ago when we were kind of having a little bit of an argument, I guess you could say, about the Kansas City series. You don't need to win every game for one. You just need to win series for one, and you got to beat the teams that you're supposed to beat, and then go out and compete with teams. Now we're starting to get into the stretch to where we're going to have to steal some games from Chicago and Cleveland, which seemed impossible maybe 16 games ago. That would seem like a bit of a stretch, but now, because they did so well against the teams that they were supposed to beat, they're right in there with Chicago and Cleveland. Suddenly you're like, yeah, bring it on. We can compete. All right, Brant. So now that we got kind of what happened last week and the ensuing games out of the way, let's get into the weekend, because it was a pretty fun weekend, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was another one of them weekends where it's a bad weekend to be a liver in a sense, but
Buckle
you
up,
wake up
liver.
on you, you wake up on Sunday, especially if you're me and had to work on Sunday again because you're trying to pay for a car repair. One of those you kind of hate your life on Sunday morning, Sunday early afternoon, but you look back on it, you're like, wow, those are the summer weekends that you really miss come the winter. And what a great party that the Thalen family put on down at the pond with
Mm-hmm.
DSA.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, just fantastic. It's always fun whenever DSA comes around, but especially not having one last year with the weddings going on. That one felt a little bit different, and that one was really fun.
It was a lot of fun. Right up until about the moment that Emma swatted my ball when we were playing. What was that game called? I can't.
Long, and I'm
Fawn.
gonna put
Thank you.
air quotes around swatted.
we had quite the rivalry going on. I always enjoy playing against you in those games, not only because you're not quite as good as me in those games, but it is kind of fun. A lot of times growing up, we were on the same team. We kind of teamed up for a lot of games. So whenever we get a chance to go at it, it's always kind of fun, and that competitive nature kicks in. So that was a lot of fun. Met a lot of great people. Obviously, knew most people there, with it being the Thalen family and everything.
But can we take a second to talk about when we were on the same team with beer pong?
Yeah.
We
Oh, yeah.
so Mitch and Sam, anyone who knows Mitch and Sam Ear's just good at everything, whether it's cornhole, softball, uh, beer pong, anything. And then you get Mitch and Sam together, and they're like darn near unbeatable. Well, then you have Chris's nephew come in, um,
Devin Nash.
Devin. Yep, Devin and Ashley, Devin and his wife Ashley. They come in and they beat them. We're like, oh, okay. These guys are actually going to be pretty good then, huh? So then me and LT Electric take them on, and we blew a 4-1 cup lead, ended up losing it. Well, then we jump right back into it. You and I play, and we take them down one on one. We don't take them down, but it gets down to one on one again, and we lose. And then we play them again, run it back, and we end up taking them to OT, extra cups, I guess you could say. It's like, man, was this like kind of a dynamic duo that we have going on here? Because a team that beat Mitch and Sam, now all of a sudden you and I are taking them to extra cups.
I
And
actually,
Nate, you got on fire a couple times. That never happens.
yeah, I was just gonna say, I think actually Jonah and Nebraska were kind of the team to beat there for a minute. It kind of came in waves, I guess, of who the team to beat was. But yeah, I mean, they hit a double island with taking everyone back to their college days. They hit a double island at the same time, so it's like, okay, we had to talk about what happened there and how many cups that is. So suddenly we got to a point to where we were going to have to force overtime. Well, Brant forgot to drink on his first shot. We had, they hit their final cup, so we had to hit it to force overtime. So his ball got swatted. I said, "All right, don't worry, I got this." I took a extra sip of my beer, hit the cup, go to overtime, entertaining overtime, just an entertaining game.
It was a instant classic, I guess you could say. I think I told Devin that you're going to see that one in February on ESPN 8, the Ocho.
Yep, NFL Network. Give me a good old March NFL Network game there. But yeah,
But
shout out to the fans again. Dick and Alex, Stats Barbecue, delicious seafood broiled there, very good. The shrimp really good. I never really got into the crawfish though, because I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not exactly sure how to attack a crawfish when it comes to a seafood broil.
I attacked a few of them, and I've seen enough videos that I had half an idea. But after I got through a few of them, it just turned into a mess, and I was like, yeah, okay. So I just kind of stuck to the shrimp. The crab legs or whatever the little ones were, those were really good. You can't go wrong with a seafood boil when it's Dad's barbecue doing it. It was phenomenal. Uh, put off a few fireworks. Yeah, DSA on Saturday night. That was a lot of fun. Like I mentioned, I had to get up and work on Sunday, but work on Sunday is a little bit easier when you know you got Cancun on the horizon. After
Yes.
getting out and going to Cancun, speaking of Emma, that's been long overdue. That was our first drinks with Emma being 21 in in public, I guess you could say. Um, can't go wrong with Cancun, Nate. How was your food?
It was good. I got a quesadilla, steak fajita quesadilla. It was pretty tasty. Chips and salsa, always pretty good. Uh, yeah, it was a nice margarita with it too.
I will say it was kind of funny. It was kind of a funny show seeing you try to understand the Spanish accent that the waiter had because at least 4 or 5 times he would say something simple like sugar or salt, and you'd pull the old, "What's that, bud?"
Well, he wasn't the loudest talker in the world, too. Maybe if he talked a little bit louder, maybe it kind of didn't really help. That's my left ear that he was talking into, and that's the ear that faces towards my driver when I'm riding in the box truck. So that ear has kind of lost a bit of volume over the years. So that's probably had something to do with it as well.
No, great time at Cancun. Always good to get some margaritas and some chips and salsa. Um, yeah,
Anyway, Brant, let's move on into the part that has slowly become everyone's favorite part of the show. With the buck bets, you want to recap what you and Jeremy came up with last week and how those results ended up on the field or on the field literally because we all did baseball bets.
yeah. So we've already mentioned my bet of how many runs is the bullpen going to give up. Nobody saw them giving up zero. So
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
I know that you more keep track of the numbers and what everybody had, but I promise you nobody had zero. So to be honest, if you probably had less than three, you're probably getting a point there. Um, as far as Jeremy's, what was it? Over 2.5? I know originally he said 3.5, but I feel like with the 5 games he bumped it down to 2.5, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was over 2.5, and then we told people that we were going to give them extra points if you can tell us how many wins exactly it was. Tigers did it. Tigers did it.
They did. They got the over. They got four, and I'll let you get those into those numbers here in a second because you're more of our statistician when it comes to that thing.
Obviously, our final prop of the week was who was going to have the longest home run, and there was a very overwhelming favorite for that, and that would be the Philadelphia Phillies. Um, for a minute there, it looked like an upset was brewing, and it was going to be the Kansas City Royals, but it was the Phillies. Kyle Schwarber had a, let's see here, how long was it? 448-yard bomb on Sunday night or Sunday afternoon, whenever they played. So here's what we got for the results. Congratulations to Connor, Brendan, TP, and Peyton, who all guessed the Phillies. They got 3 points off of that. Mitch and Grady were in the ballpark with the division, so they both got 2 points. And then we got a whole slew of people that would be Garrett Treewaller, Garrett O'Brien, Jerry, Kyle, Cam Nurnberg, Jarrett, and Mother getting a point because it was a National League team. Connor, Garrett, Treewaller, Brandon Anthony, Kyle, and Peyton Heckman ended up taking 3 points in the win total of over. Again, we said that we are going to award 2 points if you got the over-under correct, and an extra point if you got the exact win total. So all of them guys I just mentioned all guessed 4 wins, and that was the correct number. So 3 points to you guys, and then BT, Jerry, Big O, Mitch, Grady, TP, and Mother again. With 2 points there for getting the over-under correct. A lot less points coming out of the bullpen runs. Congratulations to Connor. He was the closest with 3 runs guessed, so we gave him 2 points. Garrett O'Brien, Grady, TP, Cam, and Peyton, you also got a point off of the just kind of being in the right ballpark. So now it's time to get into our champion of the week and the dumbass of the week, which is funny, Brant, because our champion this week was the dumbass last week. Congratulations, Connor Thalen. You score an extra 2 points, making your weekly performance up from 8 to 10. And then we have to award the dumbass of the week, too, which is his good buddy, Jarrett Schneider, who only got 1 point this week, who was only even remotely close on one aspect of the Buck bets, which was the home run. He was in the National League. He picked the Brewers. So congratulations, Jarrett. You are the dumbass of the week. And we will update the weekly points and the overall points. You can find that on our Instagram later this week.
Jarrett took the under, huh?
Yes, Jarrett took the under. His props, his guesses were under 6 runs and the Brewers. So nowhere close on anything of that. It's funny because we had people guess on on Wednesday, and we had people guess on Thursday. Everybody who guessed on Wednesday said over because the Tigers won the night before. Everybody who guessed on Thursday said under because the Tigers lost the night before. So, yeah, interesting kind of breakdown there. Again, we'll have the overall points and the weekly points on our Instagram, probably Thursday or Friday. And thanks everybody for participating. And here in a minute, we'll get into this week's props.
Oh, ye of little faith. That's all I'll say, Mr. Jarrett.
So, Brant, let's get into this week's props. What do you say?
Yeah, let's do it. We got to start by talking about what's coming up this weekend because this is gonna set the scene. On Saturday, well, let's even flashback back in what was it, February, somewhere around the January-February mark.
Right around there, yeah.
Collective group effort to get to a Red Wings game came about, and it ended up being me, Nate, Jarrett Schneider, Connor Thalen, Brendan Thalen, Big O, Garrett O'Brien, and Grant Sorrell. Now, if you put an over-under on the amount of weight in the vehicle, that would have been a high one. And I believe we came out to, 1960 something?
Just short of a ton. Let's just put it that way. It was just short of a ton. There was a lot of mass in that car. Let's just put it that way. And we're not talking about church either.
And there was a lot of heavy breathing in the car too. We'll say that. So yeah, the same group were like, hey, we got to go down to a Tigers game over the summer. So sure enough, we planned it out. Coming up this weekend against the Sox, turning out to be a much bigger game than what originally it seemed like it was going to be, especially with a Troy Melton start, with Troy Melton going to be on the mound. It's going to be a fun one. So without further ado, my bet has to do with Saturday, but does not have to do with baseball. I want to know, between our pregame at the Tin Roof, the Tigers game. Surely there will be some drinks afterwards, whether we stop at B-Dubs, whether we come back to the tavern. I want to know how many drinks in total, mixed drinks, beer, whatever he might be drinking that day. We'll even include shots if shots come on the menu. How many drinks will Mr. Big O, Garrett O'Brien, consume on Saturday's trip down to the Tigers?
Billions and billions.
I'm just going to tell you right now, if you're thinking anywhere around the ballpark of six or less, you are wrong.
It depends on who's asking, though. If Lily's asking, yeah, he only had like 3 or 4.
Lily knows better.
That's true. She knows he married or she married into that. And on that note of the game there, Brant, I'm curious, are we going to have to bring some butter to get Connor, Jarrett, and Brendan out of the back seat? I thought we were going to have to do that when we went to the Red Wings game.
Yeah, I definitely think the baby oil or something's going to have to come out because I don't know how they have managed to squeeze out of there last time. I don't think they're doing it again.
So, kind of flipping the topic from baseball into football, this will take place on Thursday night. The Lions open their preseason slate of games against the Bengals, and they've already announced, Dan Campbell already said to start, probably not going to be a lot of starters. So we know Goff's not going to start. Obviously, the disappointing news of Teddy Two Gloves, Teddy Bridgewater, retiring the other day. They brought on Joshua Dobbs. They have Luke Altmaier. Sounds like Altmaier will start. It sounds like Dobbs will get a decent amount of playing time. So my prop is how many yards will Dobbs and Altmaier throw for combined in that preseason game? So to recap, again, Brant says how many drinks Big O will consume on our Saturday extravaganza to the Tigers game. And my prop is how many yards will the Lions' two quarterbacks will be playing, Dobbs and Altmaier. How many yards will they combine for?
Interesting way to bring football into it. I'll say that, turning over into the football season.
Well,
And
I'm a little
for
disappointed because I would have brought in football last week had I remembered the Hall of Fame game was going on. I would have switched it up and done that, which, by the way, just like we mentioned earlier, very entertaining game.
extremely entertaining. Especially for it to come down to the final play. You know they aren't kicking a field goal. It's the Hall of Fame game. What does it matter? And
No.
Haynes King to go on the scramble to end up in the end zone. That was cinematic. I don't know. I mean, Haynes King, he was a decent quarterback at Georgia Tech. So I'll be
Quite
interested to see if he actually gets some playing time this year. Probably not, but
quite literally the rambling wreck from Georgia Tech.
so Nate, let's turn the page into a little bit of some fantasy football. I know this is the kind of time of year where everybody starts to get thinking about fantasy football. Mock drafts are being run. People are starting to figure out their strategies, but you've already got one under your belt.
I do, and it's a little bit. I made a few interesting moves. For starters, I have both Cam Scatabo and Malik Neighbors on my team simply because Malik Neighbors fell way longer than he should have because he's hurt. I mean, what's he going to be out like 2 weeks maybe at that? So I'll definitely take I'll take that combo there. That's a really good combo. Most of their offense is going through those two guys there in New York. A few guys that I kind of looked at as maybe roll the dice guys that end up taking Carnell Tate. The new receiver out there in Tennessee came over from Ohio State, got drafted like what, fourth overall, I believe. I'm also taking a risk on Jonathan Brooks. He's sitting on my bench for now, just in case Chuba Hubbard gets hurt again. Casey Concepcion, too. Again, a drafted receiver this year, got drafted pretty early. I think the first 3 rounds, if I remember right. I think even though the quarterback situation in Cleveland's a little questionable right now, I think he's going to have a really good chance to succeed. Those are a few guys that I'm taking a chance on this year. And later in the week, I'll go ahead and post my full team to the Instagram just so kind of get a look. Because again, this is a pretty interesting team. Brant, we have a lot of drafts coming up here. A lot of them that we're doing. I think pretty much all, except for my work league team. I think we're in all of our leagues together. Which one interests you the most? Because we have a diverse looking group of leagues that we're in.
Yeah, for sure we do. And one of the things we were talking about this past week that we don't have, neither you or I are in a dynasty league. That's something we both are, I think, rather interested in maybe testing the waters with. But there's two different leagues that really interest me as of right now that I'm really trying to figure out my strategy on. The first one being our Cobra League, which it's me, you, Ian Black, Ty, Mitch, our cousin Ryan,
Brendan.
Brendan, and then the newest edition, none other than Grant Sorrell. First time fantasy football player. I told him today, I was texting back and forth with him after I sent him the link. This is a really good league for him to get into fantasy football because there were a few rats on the team when we first started this league, really when it started growing. And then the rats made their way out. A couple of the guys that were in the league were trying to like kind of get people out of the trades. They were trying to fleece people, basically, is the word I'm looking for.
And it's nobody
And
local. It's some old coworkers. Let's just put it that way. It's some old
yeah,
coworkers.
some old coworkers of Mitch's. They would try to fleece people out of trades. One in particular that if Grant was getting into a league, if we were adding him and this guy was still in the league, I would be telling him, do not take a trade from him. Like that's stupid. But with the guys that we have right now, I was telling him today that usually we do an in-person draft at B-Dubs. And if he's sitting around and he doesn't really know what to do, I'm going to try to help him out as much as I can. But if he doesn't really know what to do and says, "Hey guys, where should I really go from here? Like what do I need to be looking for?" Any one of the guys in this league are going to try to help him out. Nobody's
Mhm.
going to try to give him bad advice. Nobody's going to try to tell him to go after a kicker when we don't even have kickers in our league, which is where it gets into the next point about the league. This league isn't your traditional fantasy football league because it started out, I think when we started out, it was your traditional one quarterback, two running back, two wide receiver, a flex, defense, and kicker. Well, eventually we decided to say, forget the defense and kicker, and we added an additional quarterback and we added an additional flex. And we decided to say, instead of having two of everything and one tight end, we said, hey, why not add an extra tight end? So if you think trying to draft two quarterbacks is hard, now try to draft another tight end in there too, because you really need you need two starting tight ends, and you might want a backup. And tight ends are very few and far between in the NFL as far as good scoring tight ends. But
Right,
Nate, what
right.
before I get into my other league, where do you think you kind of stand with the Cobra League?
I'll tell you what, I'm very glad we got rid of the kicker because take me back, what, 5 years ago? My biggest piece of advice for Grant Sorrell would be always download the app and use the app because a few years back, my phone was having some storage problems. So instead of using the ESPN Fantasy app, I went through the web browser. I don't know how it happened. I ended up queuing up Will Lutz. Everybody, the kicker for the Saints, Will Lutz, went 1-3 in this league because my dumbass queued him up.
I will say I'll
And
give you credit. I
yeah,
think he was 1-5. I think you were picked five, so
either way,
he was
it's the
still a
first
top
number
five
that
pick.
matters. It's the first number that matters. He went, my first pick of the draft was a kicker.
Well, and the funny thing is, we were sitting there, and all of a sudden, Nate, you just drafted Will Lutz. He went, no, I
No, I
didn't.
didn't. Nope, no, I didn't.
And we're like,
Yes, you
Nate,
did.
you
No,
just drafted Will Lutz, and you're like freaking out. You're like, I just drafted Will, and we're like, how did that happen? And you go, well, I was queuing up players, and we all look at you and went, you were queuing up a kicker before round 12?
no, I mean, I it must have just accidentally, I must have accidentally clicked it because keep in mind when you're in the browser, them little dots, the queue up buttons are like this small, and they're easily able to be tapped, and you can't untap them. And yeah, it was a mess. But you want to talk about your debacle when we first started the league, even though it is justifiable to the fact it was our first year in the league. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say I told Grant when we were at Corgan Oil Speedway on Friday night. I said you can't get much worse than my first ever draft pick. It was back when the league was just us two, Mitch, and our cousin Ryan. And my first pick was Baker Mayfield, rookie coming out of Oklahoma. Won the Heisman, and I went, "Oh, hey, he's going to be a great NFL quarterback," which he's turned out. But I picked him in the first round at like pick 4 in a 4-person league. I was like, "Oh!" As soon as I did it, Mitch was like, you should have ran that pick by me, man. That was not a good decision." Needless to say, me and Nate were duking it out for last that year. But
Hey, man, Baker's my backup this year in my work league. So, well, you saw something of the future, right?
no kidding. But one of the leagues that I'm very excited as well is something that I started brand new last year. Um, at least this was my first time doing it last year. It's called Guillotine League, and Jason Smith puts it on. And you're not going off if you've never heard of a Guillotine League, you're not facing off with people week to week. It's just simply your goal to survive. The last person every week gets dropped, and then on Tuesday, his entire team gets put on waivers where you have $1,000 through the entire season to bid on players. And every week, the lowest team gets eliminated, their team gets put up on waivers. So it's really interesting to try to figure out the whole budget. Like I spent half of my budget last year on Jonathan Taylor in week 4, but I badly needed a running back. And I ended up making it like halfway through. I think I ended up finishing like eighth or ninth out of 18 people. So I was rather impressed, having never done it before. But if you ever get offered to be in a guillotine league, I would highly suggest it just to try it for 1 year, see how you like it. It definitely adds a new twist on fantasy football, and it's one that I was very impressed with so much that I decided to do it again this year.
Speaking of things that are kind of different, um, I'm kind of trying to gauge some interest here because me and my buddy Tyler from work, we're trying to get something set up at work for this. It doesn't sound like there's a whole lot of people interested. Now, some people play college football fantasy, which we did that for a year. And I'm going to be honest with you, there's just way too much going on for me between all 132 teams, and what I am looking into doing though, we tried doing this at work and didn't quite work out. We wanted to do a college pick'em league, like maybe $10, $15 entry and do that. I don't know if maybe a lot of people have heard of College Pick'em. Our Uncle Tom runs one for our family. And it's literally, they give you 10 games a week. You pick the winner. And then the way that we do it, because you have 3 different options to do it, to kind of how you score the points is you get to set confidence 1 through 10. And if your 10 team wins, you get 10 points. If your 1 team wins, you get 1 point. So if you're interested, reach out. We're kind of trying to set up now outside of work this college pick'em kind of league to where we all throw maybe $10, $15 and the winner takes home the whole shebang. And I think that would be fun to do for money because it's a lot of fun to do when you're just doing it for fun. Wouldn't you say, Brent?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of fun. It feels like at times by the time fantasy football comes in and uh, college different things go on, it's like if it's not worth money, yeah, you're half interested, but you tend to prioritize based on your monetary, and some people say it ruins football. I get it if you're doing it for money and all this, but
If you're interested, reach out when you submit your buck bets this week. Go ahead and reach out and say, "Hey, I'd be interested in joining it." It's a lot of fun. Believe me, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And like I said, kind of entertained the idea of a college football fantasy, getting back into that. But to be honest with you, there's just a lot going on, and I didn't personally care for it. So this is something different. It keeps you entertained during a college football Saturday on top of the uh, 10 different parlays that get put together up here in the bonus room, you know.
yeah, I will stay with the fantasy college fantasy football league. You really have to be a college football ball knower to do that. And I don't mean like ball when it comes to like the Big Ten or like Michigan, Michigan State. You have to know pretty well up and down. You have to know some really good players and you got to know who to go get, or you just have to be like Richard. Richard is in it. Um, And he just picks stupid names at times. He just, oh, well, this guy looks good, and he does do research. So he does far more research than I did, and it's just really the timing of it's really weird with some games during the week and this and that. And it was just a lot to keep up with, and you really have to know ball to do stuff like that. The college pick'em, you got to know who's good, you got to think about some games and strategically place some of your seeding. But
Speaking of dumb names, by the way, I was going to bring this up when we were talking about the fantasy. The very last pick of the draft, my very last pick of my work league draft, I had like third to last pick. Like I said, I was trying to, kind of piss off our commissioner because I don't really like doing the offline draft compared to the online draft. I picked Dare Ogunbowale, which is the second or maybe even third string running back out in Las Vegas. And 10 minutes after he finalized our teams, I dropped him and picked up Khalil Mullings to try to get my buddy Tyler, who's a big Michigan fan, trying to get him to trade me Josh Allen for Khalil Mullings. I'm like, I know you want him. I know you want him. So Daryl Gubawale that might have actually been the first time that he had ever been drafted in a fantasy football league there. So Brant, you mentioned not too long ago, you mentioned Corrigan Oil Speedway. That was a fun race, by the way. Really fun race that we went to, the destruction race on Friday night. Shout out to Scott and Samir. We ended up seeing them there, and they came up and sat by us. On the topic of kind of racing a little bit, I want to kind of throw a concept into your head, or either or, that has interested a few people that I've talked to about it the last few weeks. So let's say you leave work. You leave for work in the morning. You're running a few minutes behind. Definitely don't suggest doing this. Definitely not saying that this has or has happened. Let's say you're going to work. Let's say you're just going fast enough to where you're concerned. Okay, you respect that you're going a little bit faster than you should. What would you rather see on the side of the road? A cop car or a deer?
mm, interesting question there. For one, if you're a mother right now, you can probably scoot away from the podcast. We drive safe. We don't know. I don't know what he's talking about. He and I both drive safe.
55, arrive alive, right?
Yep, for sure. Let me just tell you right now, as a guy who is paying for a mildly expensive both mechanical and auto body repair right now, 100% a cop. The ticket, for those of you that maybe didn't hear, I got into a fender bender probably 2 or 3 weeks ago on my way to work, and because of Michigan's um, law, because it's a no fault state, they don't have to actually determine who's at fault. The back car automatically assumes fault in a rear end collision, which happened to be me, even though it wasn't even my fault. The lady in front of me got cut off. We both agreed to that. My ticket got reduced, but outside of the insurance going up, the ticket was the last thing that I was concerned about with that. Like, okay, 130, it was going to be a $135 ticket. It got reduced to 100. The ticket was the last thing I was concerned about because now I'm paying thousands of dollars to get it mechanically repaired. So I guess getting back into the question, yeah, the points on the license, the insurance going up suck, but man, if you hit a deer and you got to pay a few $1,000s for a car repair, that sucks.
Well, and here's the point. Here's the point. You're assuming worst case scenario. I never said that deer was going to run out in the road. I never said that cop was paying attention. So it's kind of a chance thing. You pass by that cop. Maybe the cop doesn't have his radar on. That cop is not moving anywhere. He's not going to jump out in front of you and ruin your car. But he's probably more than likely, there's probably a 50-50 chance, I would say, that he's paying attention or he's not to come get you. That deer, on the other hand, he could go off into the field. He could stay there. He could scramble another way. But if he runs out into the road, you're cooked. You're paying for car repairs. You are paying to get a new, to repair your car. So, in my opinion, there is a less likely chance that the deer comes out. But if he does, you're more screwed, in my opinion. But
Right, that's a
as for the
solid thought.
cop,
I assumed
as for the
worst case
cop,
scenario.
as for the cop, yeah, there's a 50-50 chance he comes after you, but you'd probably almost rather get pulled over by the cop than to hit the deer. But again, that's assuming worst case scenario. Does that change your thought process at all?
See, now you're assuming gambling, man. See, I assumed worst case scenario and assumed that the cop is for sure pulling me over or the deer is for sure getting hit. Um, I do agree that there's a far less likely chance of the deer coming out into the road because usually they do get scared away from the road. Man, it's one of those paradox questions that you kind of got to think on. You almost kind of swayed me back towards the deer. Um, take the gamble on it, I guess.
I think I don't know. Again, it's I've heard different opinions from different people. I would almost take a chance on the deer. Let me put it this way: in those situations, um, I've seen far more deer in that situation than I have cops, and for the most part, I mean, I've hit a few deer in my short time driving. My what now? Almost 10 years driving. I've hit a few deer, but I've seen way more deer than what I've hit. So I think I would go with the deer there too. Let us know what you think. Text us, message us. Let us know what you think, and we'll kind of reconverse on this next week and see kind of what the general thought was.
We got to be able to get a way for people to call in on our show. We're going to be all like, caller number 5, what are your thoughts? And we're going to get a Jim Harbaugh sucks. This is Garrett O'Brien.
We're gonna get a. Is
Hey,
that the worst two managers in Thursday Night League? Oh, hey, it's Shrimpy.
Hey, Shrimpy. Hey, guys, I think that the Tigers should trade Tarek Skubal and everybody else for absolutely nothing. Huh?
Well, Merry Christmas, Shrimpy. They
If
did.
you've ever talked ball with Shrimpy, you understand Shrimpy does not know ball.
Brent, we pissed off the whole Matrix team last week. Now we're gonna piss off Shrimpy. Are we just trying to piss people off on the show now?
Well, I tell you what, I don't think Shrimpy's going to be batting in the playoffs, so I don't think we have to worry about him going yard.
Yikes. Okay. Okay. Shots fired. Shots fired.
All right, Nate. So we're kind of getting there on time right now. One thing's for sure, we mentioned it. It's definitely a fun time of year right now, getting into football season, fantasy football, college football. We've got some fun weekends on the horizon too, outside of sports. Lots to look forward to this time of year. What do you think about the next month or so?
Yeah, I mean, we're getting to the dog days of summer. It's roasting out. I mean, today was terrible humidity after that thunderstorm, but yeah, I mean, things are heating up just like you said for sports, for football coming back off the field too. I mean, we're going to the Tigers game this weekend. We got that to look forward to. We got a big weekend up at Crystal here in a few weeks. We got Labor Day coming up. Me, you, and Brendan and Grant have a golf outing coming up here in a few weeks. I think it's going to be a tough few weeks on the liver. Let's just put it that way.
For sure, but it's going to be a great time. Some of the best times are had when the liver is suffering, that's for sure.
For sure. For sure.
So, Nate, before we send it away, you want to go over one more time our Bucks bets of the weeks and kind of give your closing thoughts for the week as we head into the weekend?
Yeah, so again, your prop was Garrett O'Brien total drinks on Saturday. That's probably going to be pretty high, as for most of us, legally obligated to say that you are the driver and that you probably shouldn't have as much as the rest of us. We will be obviously responsible with that. Mine is how many yards will Dobbs and Altmaier combine on the Lions Thursday night preseason opener. And yeah, a few final thoughts. I mean, it should be a fun weekend. Again, just like you said, fun time of the year. And God willing, we'll do this all again next week.
For sure. For sure, Nate. Another great week, another great episode. Appreciate your thoughts this week, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, for sure.
As for our viewers, thank you for tuning in. We hope that we have been able to entertain you for the past hour or so. Make sure you reach out to us via text, via Snapchat, via our Instagram at Bucksball and Beyond. Make sure you get your bets in and give us your thoughts on would you rather take a deer or would you rather take the cop? Either way, make sure you reach out. Let us know what you think. We're going to have some guests on in the coming months or so talking some football. We've got some lined up already, some other ones that we're thinking about. If you want to be a guest on the show, feel free to reach out. Let us know. We're always looking for people to come on and give their sports takes, their beyond takes. You never know. You might end up being the next big guest on Bucks Ball and Beyond. But until next week, we hope you have a safe and fun week, and we'll see you right back here next week on Bucks Ball and Beyond.